Hi, good afternoon and welcome to today's panel. My name is Morwenna Beales and I'm the VP of Accounts at ID5. The title of the panel today is Rebuilding Identity to Benefit the Open Web. So we all know that identity is crucial for the advertising ecosystem, and we all know it's crucial for revenue. In fact, it accounts for 50 to 60% of revenue for the publisher, and that users that buyers can recognize are worth nearly 60% more than anonymous users. We've also seen some pretty significant regulatory and infrastructure changes in the marketplace over the last couple of years. Safari, Chrome, of course, recently the IDFA. These are all changes that will have a very real impact on revenue and our ability to operate in this marketplace. And it's going to make it even more challenging to identify users and arguably even further strengthen the position of and the competitive advantage of the walled gardens. So today on this panel, we want to talk about what we can do to address that and how collectively we can build a new identification infrastructure that both supports the open web, but also doesn't compromise a user's privacy. So guys, first of all, thanks so much for joining us. We've got a great lineup today. If I can, I'd love you guys to introduce yourselves, your organization and your role within the organization, and we can jump into some questions. Romain, do you want to kick off?
Yeah, sure. Happy to be here. I'm Romain Job, Chief Strategy Officer at Smart. And in a few words about Smart, like we are expert in building solutions and platform around advertising automation in a wall. And so we address any type of advertising channels and primarily provide ad serving solutions as well as SSP and DSP to both publishers and buyers.
Great. Alex?
Thanks. So firstly, thank you to the ID5 team for having me here. So my name is Alex Kirby. I am the head of Programmatic and Audience Data at Dennis Publishing. So my role looks at the global programmatic monetization and covers off our tech stack, as well as managing our data management platform integrations and our commercial first-party data strategy. So a little bit about Dennis. Dennis Publishing is a multi-brand print and digital publisher operating globally, primarily in the UK and the US. Across 4 key verticals, and those verticals are current affairs, technology, lifestyle, and automotive.
Great. Hammad?
Hi, I'm Hammad. I'm founder and CEO of Adlive. We help bring more transparency on the programmatic supply chain by building direct connections between publishers and buyers. And we mainly focus on video and connected TV.
Fantastic. And Cristina?
Hi everyone, my name is Cristina. Sagarduy. I am the Chief Performance Officer from the EMEA. EMEA owned is one of the largest agencies for media planning and buying. In my role on the EMEA, I am in charge of the performance and digital products, as well as the providing strategic solutions for our clients when it comes to the infrastructure that they need to build to operate in the media world.
Fantastic. It's really great to get both buy, both sell, and the platform. So guys, thank you so much. Let's kick off by, we've come a long way, but we've still got some where to go. Let's kick off by, where are we on the digital identity journey? Perhaps from the sell side, Alex, you could talk to us about where you think we are on that journey.
Sure. So we started looking into this probably about 2 or 3 years ago, around the time when there were the initial big browser changes. We did some analysis into our programmatic CPMs, obviously saw the discrepancies that kind of everyone's aware of, and we looked to changing our data management platform, which was one of the key reasons we did that a few years ago. It's a really interesting one because it really felt like towards the end of last year and the beginning of this year, we were really starting to get somewhere. Obviously, there was the Chrome announcement at the beginning of the year, and I think that really galvanized those conversations. Everyone suddenly thought, oh, we really, really need to do something about this now. Honestly, I actually think we've taken a slight step back primarily because of COVID. Obviously, we've all had 4 months of having to deal with some real immediate pressures to our business. And I think that that's maybe pushed that conversation, which was really starting to get traction, back a little bit. So I think now, as we start to hopefully come out of that period, hopefully kind of return to some semblance of normality, we can refocus on it. I think that I think in ad tech, we're very good at coming up with solutions, but the problem is sometimes you have too many solutions. I think it would be interesting to see maybe a period of standardization of those solutions, kind of weeding out some of the ones that aren't necessarily scalable, and then really being able to focus on a few key different solutions, be it identity pixels, be it, you know, better routes to market for buyers, you know, various different things. And I think then after that, we'll be able to really make some key decisions in the industry about how we really want to approach this. Because I think a lot of people are still not really sure what they're actually doing or how to really approach this very complicated issue.
Okay. And so obviously you're looking at this from the sell side. Cristina, you're looking at this from the buy side. Do you agree that we've taken a bit of a pause during COVID, obviously, but do you agree that's where we are in terms of the journey so far, or are you looking at this differently from the buy side?
Well, I don't think we have stopped because of COVID. I think if anything, COVID, is accelerating everything, and especially when it comes to critical digital conversations. I do agree that we are still in that phase that I feel Alex was describing, more experimenting the different solutions. I think I think it was interesting when she was mentioning that there is a list of solutions that they are going to be put in place to bring identity for the open web in the future, especially when browsers they deprecate third-party cookies. So we are in that phase, experimenting, looking at the solutions, trying to put them in place, looking how it's going to be affecting the technology. But we haven't making final decisions yet. So we believe that it's very much always an approach that we are going to have to take to get it right when it comes to identity.
Okay, interesting. And so from the platform perspective, Romain and Hammad, you guys are looking at it from that side of things. Do you think the onus is on either the buy, the sell, or the platform side of things to kind of own identity? What are your viewpoints on that? Maybe let's go with Romain.
Yeah, I think like there is no solution that that can be owned by one stakeholder or the other. At the end, like, we have to collaborate to make this happen. We as a platform, I mean, our primary role is to drive more transaction, and so in that sense, we are here to enable. And so our primary goal is really to make sure this new identity future is happening by enabling new ID-driven transaction in the future. But again, our approach to this is to collaborate with vendors, with publishers, with buyers as well, and make sure this ecosystem is emerging. And so to the point, like, we are still more or less in the middle of the bridge, but I do agree that things are accelerating. There were a few announcements recently, like the Apple announcement around ID5, or also IAB deprecating DigiTrust, that are really good signs that this ecosystem is transforming. But also we see how Google or Facebook are aggressive with their single sign-on technology, and they are really more and more aggressive. And so it really shows that something is happening.
Absolutely. Hammad?
Yeah. At our level, to be honest, give a little bit of background. Until August last year, 2019, that wasn't really a subject, because as a platform, we're close to publisher, and it's we're also fighting to get publishers' attention. And back then, their focus was not on identity, because it wasn't impacting their top line, either the bottom line at the end of the day. So it was more difficult to bring the subject on the table. But starting from July, August last year, we've started digging into the numbers, trying to optimize the revenues for publishers. And what we've seen is that there was an increased number of ad requests that were, or let's say impressions and transactions that were returning very low revenues because of the identity issue. So it started becoming a very, very important issue to address with publishers. So that was in August. And then in early 2020. It also happens because of the announcement that were made by Google and Apple. So it's starting to become a very important problem because it is impacting all the players on the marketplace, all the revenues. So I think now it's the time to talk about that. And in terms of ownership, we're all eating a piece of the same cake. So it's important that we put in the right ingredients, publishers, marketers, agencies, everyone. So I think it's the right time to have this kind of conversation at a collective level.
Absolutely. I think, you know, from ID5 perspective, we came to market sort of 2.5 years ago. And back then we were talking about the problem, and now we're talking about the solution. So in terms of ownership, Hammad, you just mentioned that. Do you, within your organizations, do you have a group who are owning identity exclusively, or who's looking at this within your organization? Let's go again the same, Alex, from the sales side.
Sure. So we don't have one person or one team that's looking at this. So I sit within revenue operations, which basically covers off all of the sort of technical ad operations infrastructure for data and commercialization of our websites. So we started looking at this obviously because it was impacting our programmatic revenues, and obviously on the data management side as well. I think what's really interesting that's happened at Dennis over the past year or so is it's gone from being a conversation in programmatic to being a conversation that impacts multiple parts of our business, and that realization. So we work a lot, we're very heavily in the motoring space. Motoring is very attribution based. So all of your advertising are always about working back to a key metric, which might be a test drive brochure request. Obviously, we're realizing that that's impacted as well. You know, e-commerce is impacted, lead generation is impacted. So whilst previously, maybe a year or two ago, it was me and my team and the people around me that were talking about it, now that everyone's starting to realize how wide this issue is, and obviously we're really starting to engage with our agency partners as well around potential solutions, I think that means that the knowledge of it and the implications of it kind of spreading through the business. So it means that we're starting to have a lot more senior level conversations about how we might address the problems.
Yeah, absolutely. And the press, right? The press is entrenched with identity related topics, which is really helping from, you know, getting that messaging. What about on the platform side of things? Do you guys have exclusive teams that are looking at identity, or is it within the operations team? How is that set up?
Yeah, so on our side, obviously, it's a big transformation topic. So it's very transverse and many people are involved. This being said, we are at this stage where this topic is driven by the product organization, just because, I mean, we know what we have to do. And so we are in the process of implementing this at the different level of the platform and making sure we can deliver the value proposition we envision for the product. But then again, obviously legal is involved, because we cannot unlink this identity topic from the privacy and the compliance in Europe, for instance, or in other countries, and there are partnership aspects as well as business aspects that need to be addressed at the same part. But I would say product definitely has the lead at the moment.
Okay, interesting. And Hammad, on your side?
Now it's starting to become part of the product team as well, because as we're addressing different channels and different platforms, we're addressing web, mobile, as well as connected TV. So it's become very important. So it's a building block of our product. And now we have a task force that is working on that from the product team as well.
Fantastic. What about the buyer side, Cristina?
Yeah, I think for us is the same as the rest. It's not only one team owning it, because this identity affects many areas of business. Even also in an organization like ours, that we operate across many different markets, there is different point of view and different solutions that they need to be implemented to operate globally at a scale or within an EMEA environment. So we have different layers from the compliance perspective, from the technology and integration perspective. I mean, OMD has its own proprietary technology as well that helps to create better planning. So we need identity to work within the platform. So how we are enabling that connections, and also the activation side and the media side. What are the implications of identity? So for us, it's more about the working group, that they need to understand what is the new ecosystem, how we are gonna take a common approach to overcome that. So it's different functions with the organization working on it.
Okay, great. And so, you know, you've talked about where we are on that digital identity journey, about who is kind of owning this within your organizations. Have you made kind of changes within the tech stack? Have you made changes to the way that you're operating in light of the current browser restrictions that we see, and of course the future restrictions that are going to come into play over the next couple of years? Maybe let's go to Alex first off.
Sure. Yeah, so we have made a few big structural changes. So a few years ago, we switched DMPs to a partner that did not rely on third-party cookies, and obviously that allowed us to aggregate and then activate on those audiences. There are obviously some optimizations that our operations team can do. So looking at when we've got a direct campaign, potentially you can target those campaigns towards browsers where third-party cookies aren't allowed, to allow the programmatic monetization to potentially be leveraged where you can still use those cookies. That is, you know, sometimes quite manual, but obviously you can get some revenue gains from that. And then obviously we are doing a lot to protect our own first-party data. So it depends brand by brand, because the solution doesn't necessarily work for all of our brands, depending on the way that our audiences engage. But we're doing a lot to drive our own sign-ups, you know, get email addresses, all of that kind of stuff through, so that we can build up a really, really strong first-party data strategy, and then we can obviously leverage that with our clients. But you know, obviously we're engaging with the identity platforms through a lot of our programmatic partners as well.
Okay, fantastic. And on the buy side, Cristina, have you guys made changes within the tech stack in light of these restrictions?
So we adopted the 5P framework in terms of privacy compliancy, persistence, probability. So we are looking at how we put that in place. But I think, as I said at the beginning, for us, we are still experimenting with many of the solutions, and it definitely impacts in the way that we select our partners, because we need to have partners that they are going to enable more than one solution, because that's how we believe the future will be, and that plays into our criteria when we are advising on the technology that our partners they need to use.
Fantastic. And onto the platform side of things, what's the feedback from you guys? Romain, first off.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, like the primary goal originally was around these new compliance environment, and so we made a significant effort at every stage of the company to ensure this compliance with this new regulation. And other than that, as cookies are being deprecated, basically we made our product able to operate in a multi-ID world in an efficient manner. Again, being the enabler, we want to make sure all partners on both sides can operate with the ID they want efficiently on our stack. And then the other topic, which is kind of related, it's the emerging of an ecosystem where programmatic transactions happen without any IDs. And we think there will be a part of the market in the future that will still operate, but without any ID going through the transaction. And so here we have been also dedicating some product effort and launching some features, some capabilities around the semantic context targeting, or PG is a big topic as well for us. And so all this type of transaction where audience identification is not a must. And so something we'll keep investing on as well.
So you're planning against both routes, essentially?
Yeah,
okay.
We really think that two markets will emerge. There is the consent economy where ID will prevail in some ways or another. And then this side of the market where basically we won't have the consent, we won't have any IDs, but we still need to operate some advertising transaction to deliver a performance to the advertiser and revenue to the publishers.
Does that not, when you look at context is kind of moving backwards versus moving forwards? Are you looking at that differently, or?
Yeah,
it doesn't work in the same. Digital advertising doesn't work in the same, you know.
Yeah, no, but it's a new approach in the sense that the data science technology have evolved in a way that we are able to leverage context in a much more efficient fashion than what we used to. Like typically, we used to be doing context with a few keywords in the page. Today, with a natural language processing algorithm, we are able to extract much more value from the context than just a few keywords.
Okay, interesting. So Hammad, just on that last question, I just want to understand if you guys have made changes from an infrastructure perspective in light of the changes that we've seen.
Yeah. The most important one for us, as we were initially operating mainly on the sales side, the most important challenge for us was to build identity connections with the operators on the buy side. So, and that was a significant move for us in order to be able to match and offer some match audiences and match inventory to the buyers. That was at the first level. And the second one, the other very important challenge we addressed was the fact that we were operating now on multiple channels while adding connected TV. So those were very important things to address, like targeting, frequency capping, and attribution. And those challenges are very important when we move to a multi-channel and multi-platform environment. So this is a very important project we're working on, and solutions we're trying to address both internally, because we have an existing stack that we've been building over the years, and also trying some tech partners on the market. So this is one that is very important, because I think that this trend is going to become more and more important. As Romain was saying, there's going to be some consent economy, and especially that we're going to move to more devices being connected. We're when offering to advertisers more and more IoT inventory, and here audience is very important. You don't want to have unlimited capping displayed to a specific audience for a brand. It's very detrimental. That's for the identity and multi-channel. And circling back to contextual, as Romain said, it's very important now that we have more capabilities in terms of targeting, in terms of NLP, and depending on where we are on a funnel for an advertiser, it can make a lot of sense to address and add contextual targeting to some campaigns. And there are some studies that have been run where we can deliver some very interesting performances for both the advertisers and the publishers in terms of revenue. Okay,
interesting. So I guess zoning in on that performance element, what key metrics do you guys look at in terms of performance? Login, CPM, win rates, cross-device, fraud? Like what are you interested in? What would be successful to you? Cristina, let's kick off from the buy side.
Well, I think is in terms of, and I think I want to understand the question correctly. I mean, how we measure these, the performance of the media when it comes to I mean, it's very difficult to just put it just to one value, no? Yeah. So almost is everything that is being mentioned. I think we're trying to develop KPIs that they relate to the business of our clients. They help us to create. We balance hygiene, sustainability, and performance. No, it's about balancing all the different metrics against the key output that we are looking to achieve. And when it comes to identity, the need for flexibility means the persistency and accuracy has to be the main KPIs. So that's kind of probably.
Yeah. Yeah, and what I guess where I'm coming from is that you guys are representing different elements of the market, and you're going to have strengths in different ways. And so, kind of, what do you need from each other? You know, what are the limitations? What are the opportunities with the value that each kind of element of the industry can bring? So, Alex, sorry, I cut you off, Cristina. No, go ahead.
I think what I was going to say is, for me, if I'm looking at the role of the rest they are able to play is, you know, what percentage of media that we can buy, we can know something about the identity of that user or the context of what uses it is in there. I mean, what can we enable it? Can we enable it at a scale? No, I think are all those typical things. I think Romain is talking a lot about we're trying to create a scalable solution. I guess that's the challenge, no? How you are gonna enable an identity that is scalable, because if you are only going to identify a very small proportion of the markets, again, that's why we believe that the solution is going to have to be from many different pockets and having that enabler that give us the scale. So those are.
Absolutely. I think, adoption is absolutely key at this when we think about identity. Alex, from your side, when we talk about metrics, are there specific metrics that you're looking at, or?
Sorry, I was on mute. So when it comes to performance, like so campaign metrics, often our clients will set key metrics according to the type of campaign. But we will also look at engagement metrics such as performance metrics such as engagement, scroll rate, time on page, those kind of things, just to add a little bit more into it. But when it comes to identity, obviously we are tracking our CPMs, so we do quite regular reporting on the programmatic CPMs we might get in from different browsers, different partners that might have leveraged different solutions. We look at obviously kind of logins and sign up and all that thing. But I think what's kind of just been mentioned by a few people on the panel is a really key point, in the sense that moving away from metrics for a second, that I used to definitely think that you can just try and replicate one thing and create something new and then, happy days. But I think maybe we need to move forward to, really creating multiple different solutions. It's not, we cannot necessarily replicate what we can do, what we used to do when we opened programmatically. And as a publisher, for me, that's not necessarily a bad thing, because programmatic has really, commoditized and devalued publisher inventory. So if we can have multiple solutions that both allow, the scalability of what we have done in the past, but also, leveraging, more targeted or more curated platforms, better routes to market, contextual and first-party data from publishers as well, in a way that works for multiple different players. I think that's potentially a better solution than just trying to replicate what we've previously done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think from an identity perspective, we're definitely in a kind of a consolidation process. It's not a fragmentation process. We're going from sort of hundreds of providers down to 4, so it's going to be easier to test these solutions. Let's just change tack slightly and talk about privacy and how privacy plays into your stack. Perhaps from the platform perspective, Hammad, maybe you could talk to us about how you handle privacy.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
So the question was just around privacy and how you're handling privacy within the stack when tackling identity.
Well, that's a very, very funny question, because the situation now for identity reminds me of what was happening 2 years ago for when GDPR was really trending. And we observed the same trend, or the same kind of interest, rising interest, starting to rise. And then when the final date happened, just crashed after a couple of weeks. And I'm mentioning this one because I don't want it to happen that way, because after GDPR in June 2018, most publishers were not as interested in the theme of privacy, GDPR. They said, okay, let's see, and let's wait and see what's going to happen. But as we are exposed to a lot of many number of publishers, and also we addressing the buy side, for us it's an important subject to address, as we are in the middle of the platform. So for us, it's an important subject that we try to add in all the product features that we release, and it's managed at central level, of course, managing both compliance and technical features that we offer to our clients.
Okay. And Romain, how about you, and how about just doubling back on the privacy piece? How are you handling privacy at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, it's always the same when we do a meeting. Basically, there is always the DPO not too far. No, but so really, like we made this work over the last few years to make sure we were controlling where the data we were exposed to were coming from, and where we are sending them. And so it's really like, yeah, like the GDPR compliance spirit, and we keep following that. And obviously, as I mentioned before, like identity cannot be unlinked from privacy. And I think one of the reasons why we are here is because we are entering in a much more controlled programmatic advertising ecosystem at many levels. And one of that is the control of user privacy. And so we just make sure that the product is built accordingly, that we educate the market as well. We spend a lot of our resources, and we have a few experts who have been evangelizing on the matter. And so we let's say at the center of our preoccupations. Yeah,
absolutely. So, you know, we've touched on privacy there, and we've talked about kind of key metrics. I do just want to quickly talk about cohorts, which is obviously the approach which is being promoted by Google, and that will give, do you think that will give the open web enough granularity, enough customization capabilities, or is the fact that they own that intelligence, the browser is owning that intelligence, is that a problem for the ecosystem? Anyone want to take that one, or maybe Cristina, do you want to start off with that one?
Well, I think it's almost like you almost lead to the answer. No, it's a
leading question. Sorry,
Patrick. I have to say that cohorts, they do work, no? So because they give you a scale, and then they've been good for that. I think when you talk specifically about the Google solutions, there are some technicalities that you need to have into place to be able to leverage all of that. And I think that's where it becomes a bit of a challenge, that not all the advertisers, I mean, we as an organization, definitely, I would be lying to say we will work with Google on leveraging those solutions. And it's good for us to be able to offer a segmentation that we can quickly scale. But I think for individual advertisers, it can become quite challenging. I also think, we are talking in the context of programmatic, which is all about real-time or semi-real-time decisions. And I think, again, when you go to that cohort outside of such a well-connected environment as the Google is, then you cannot react so quickly. So that it does bring the challenges, but again, it's nothing to be disregarded either, because it can bring benefits.
Romain, how do you feel?
Yeah, no, but I feel it's an interesting area of investigation, and there are probably great possibilities of innovation in that field. But what makes me uncomfortable is like who controls this type of a code targeting product or offering, and whether or not it's done in a transparent fashion, and really anyone in the ecosystem can innovate and provide interesting solutions. My feeling is that so far what has been proposed by Google is a bit too opaque or inaccessible for third parties, and so I'm a bit uncomfortable at the moment, but it's something we are looking at.
And Hammad, do you feel the same way, or?
Yeah, partially, because with Google, we've seen that happening the same thing happened before, and it's the path with least resistance. It just works. Is it a black box? Definitely. Does it miss features? Of course. Are a lot of people going to use it? Definitely. And if you just compare what is happening on the monetization part with EBDA and header bidding, and just project that to what can happen with the identity part. Does EBDA work? Yes. Is it a black box? A huge black box. Can you make more money as a publisher if you add header bidding with customized settings, with some development effort? Of course. So my guess is that it's going to be working the same thing from the identity part. Do we need an independent solution? Of course. Our identity will be shared across devices, across IoT devices as well. So it's important to have an independent solution. But my guess is that at first, Google solution is going to work fast, and it's going to solve a lot of issues. But it doesn't mean that we don't need another one.
So just on that independent piece, I think that's obviously hugely important. Do you all agree that there needs to be an independent identity solution in the market then? Maybe like a thumbs up on the webinar, does that work? Yes? Yes, brilliant. Okay, so I guess to look to the future, I know we've only got 5 minutes left and maybe want to cover some questions. what are you looking to, what do you need from each other or from an identity provider? What would make life easier at the moment for you? Alex, let's kick off with you on that one.
Sure. So I think right now we just need clarity, and I think keeping on top of the news and announcements that come through, especially from the browsers, will be really, really key. You know, we don't want to put all of this effort and all of this work in for Google, whoever, to drop a solution that would just kind of blow everything out the park. And I agree massively with Hammad as well that you know, we do need an independent solution, as well as, you know, very much likely using a Google solution and multiple other ones as well. I think from identity providers, I think clarity. I think one of the things that makes me slightly hesitant as a publisher is, you know, for many, many years, our data has been scraped, aggregated, lookaliked, and then the value of that data has not been attributed back to the publisher. So I'd like to see that there is appropriate and real value of where that data is coming from. A lot of the time that's on publisher sites going back to the publishers. I don't necessarily want to put my data, whilst I philosophically believe in the open web and identity and all that stuff, I don't want to put a huge amount of my data out there and not necessarily get the value back that I think that we should get for it. So I'd like to see transparency and clarity around that. And yeah, just solutions. We just want solutions. There's too many problems. So, you know, a consolidation of solutions and a real clear view that we're going to work on 3 or 4 key things that will address these key issues, and then we can all kind of engage with each other and make sure that it happens in the best way. Bit fluffy, sorry, but
no, that's great. Cristina, what about you?
Yeah, I think I guess as an industry we need to come together, and we need to understand that we need each other to operate, you know. So I guess we will go on in terms of the FAV, but it will be about, you know, understanding the role that we play in the supply chain, have the transparency to collaborate. And I mean, I'm not that sure that we just need, again, as I keep saying, I think there is going to be many solutions from a technology perspective. I will be asking them to enable that. I mean, to enable the onboarding of different solutions, so we can implement them to plan and buy effectively on behalf of the advertisers. We also want the technologies to be able to onboard the first-party data for advertisers and be able to enrich that. Perhaps this is something that it will be good for the publishers, no? Because, I mean, if we look about Google, again, they are, in theory, or even Amazon with the marketing cloud, trying to enable advertisers to enrich the data that they put in the platform. So enabling that type of exchange, that's something that I will definitely look for, and just transparency. That's what we need. We don't need another thing that is gonna bring more, you know, darkness into the supply chain.
Okay, and from the platform perspective, Romain, what are you looking at identity providers for in the market?
I mean, a lot have been said already, so definitely, adoption and transparency are 2 important keywords. There are alternatives to cookies, but like we all need to align on that, and in a way, like it's a perfect timing to test and explore, and so we are really willing to do that with some more partners. There were a few interesting comments from both supply and buy side. So Cristina and Alex, like this identity future will give more power to first-party data. There is no doubt about that, because more control means that first-party data get back in power and get more value in the future market. And so there are also very interesting use case and business case to explore for us around how to enable those first-party data. And so it's typically something we are working on with some buyers, some sellers. And so we need to, again, test and explore and make this happen, because it's coming quick.
Test, explore, transparency, adoption, collaboration, kind of the hit words. Hammad, any other words to add on that, or are you aligned with that?
Yeah, of course I'm aligned. And for the last 15 to 20 years, the programmatic advertising industry has been using and misusing personal data and identity for free. So with GDPR, we said, well, the regulator said, private data has an ownership, it belongs to the owner. So with this part of the GDPR and the portability, we enforce the fact that data has value. So first party data, as you were saying, Romain, has a lot of value. And now, as advertiser, will have more and more will to use the first party data of their publishers. There's even a bigger need for identity to build those bridges between the buy side and the sell side. And of course, it requires adoption and transparency.
Great. I think we're at time. I think we had 30 to 40 minutes and we're on 41. There has been one question come in for Cristina. From a buy-side perspective, how can an agency track and measure an advertising campaign if you don't use an identity solution?
Oh, wow. I think, you know, we, at least in ID, we have invested a lot in our measurement solutions. That definitely is going to be a challenge. We'll have to define that. I mean, elements of the first party data and how our advertisers they choose to collaborate with that. That will be one area of how we can measure. I don't think it's the difficulty to measure it is until what level of detail we're looking to measure that, no? And what are the indicators that we are going to use to do that. We measure things on the business outputs from our clients, so we will need to maybe define new metrics, but the methodologies, they are still in place and they can be adapted.
Fantastic. I think we're at time's up, guys. Really appreciate you taking the time today. I'm sorry it's not on a real boat. Let's try and get on a real boat next year. Really interesting discussion. Yeah, thumbs up to a boat next year. Thank you very much. And yeah, thanks everyone who signed in and watched this live, and speak soon.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, bye.
Bye-bye.
Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Cheers.